Iitaanɔɔn'i sit toya catcher that hospital. Well, we flew into Harrisburg, Pennsylvania last night, all the way from Billings, Montana, and we're here at Carlisle Army Barracks, and at this Indian cemetery here for these kids that were buried here, that were left behind, that were at the boarding school all them years ago. We come back here to bring them home, bring our people home, 3 of them. My grandmother, my grandma Matilda, who I knew as a young boy. She lived with us when I was a little fella. I never met my grandpa Frank Cutstherope, but through my grandma and my mom, I learned about what happened to her and our people that went to boarding school. And when I say went to boarding school, it doesn't mean anything like getting up in the morning and saying goodbye to your folks to get on the school bus to head to the elementary, you know. She was 3 years old. I think my grandpa was 5 when they were forcibly taken from their folks and our people. And she was traumatized by what happened to her. She was hurt. She didn't want to go. She expressed these things to my mother. She wanted to make sure that I was told these things. I was too young then. So my mom had to wait for me to get a little older to start explaining things to me. She didn't wait too long. I was probably around 8 or 9 when she started telling me some things. But I remember my grandma, every night, every evening, she would go back into her bedroom in the back of the cabin, and she would cry. She would mourn. It was a mournful cry. She was still mourning. And then I'd hear her talk in Indian. I'd hear her speaking Iitaanɔɔn'i. And she was, as a little boy, I could tell that she was talking to people. She was visiting. She would cry first, and then she would visit. Then she'd go to bed. She'd go to sleep. And I'd always ask my mom, what's going on? Why does she do that? And my mom would just say, she's mourning. That's her way of trying to heal. And so when I think of repatriation, it's really personal. I think of these stories that I was told about their experience, and I'll share one of them. This was what happened to my grandfather, Frank, and my grandmother, but this particular story comes from her. And then what he told her about his experience, because they separated the girls and the boys for most of the time. So Matilda remembers that soldiers and Indian police came and rounded them all up, forcibly took them from their parents and put them in wagons, or forced them to walk with the soldiers and the police on horseback. And they took them to the train, and there was dirty straw thrown in the floor of these cattle cars, and all these kids were loaded up in these cars on the train, And they took a long trip, she said, a long way, several days. And just said the kids were forced to, when they had to go to use the bathroom, they had to go right there on the floor in front of everybody. And they were packed in there, pretty good. And then when they got to their destination, they were unloaded, and they were gathered up and lined up. And they had an Indian interpreter speak to them in their language and tell them that this is the last time you're going to be told anything in your language. From here on out, you will not speak it anymore. We're going to teach you how to speak English and live like an American. And then they cut their braids off. All their hair was piled in one pile. They took their moccasins and they put them in another. And in the third pile, they took any kind of thing that was dear to them, like anything wakan or that they had around their neck, or like a little baby doll they may have taken with them, pemmican pouch, anything like that. And that was made of a third pile. And they poured kerosene over each one, and then they had a priest come out and pray in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. They lit those on fire in front of them kids. And that was my grandma and grandpa's first day of school. And so from then, I remember this story that comes from my grandfather, Frank. He said the way he got his name was they had a chalkboard in the classroom. And when I heard this story, it reminded me of a book I read by Charles Dickens called Oliver Twist. And that's how they were given their names too, because they didn't know who these kids were, these orphans in that book. But my grandfolks and all these other kids, they had their names. And so they said, they went down the list: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all Christian names. Now you're Francis. Well, who is his dad? His dad is Cutstherope. So that is now your name. Francis Cutstherope. And so that's how my grandpa Frank got his name. He then shared with his wife Matilda later on that there was a young man named Yellow Shirt. And I think Frank said that he was a Sioux, a Lakota. And anyways, like these two young men that we're bringing home, these two Iitaanɔɔn'i, they were 15, 16 years old. And in them days, a 15, 16-year-old male was already well on his way to establish himself as a man. He was already a hunter, and very well may have been a warrior. May have been on a raid or a scouting party at least. Maybe he had even went off to Count Coup in war. But that's not how they were treated. And Yellow Shirt demanded to be treated as a warrior. And they told them their names, and the first thing they had to learn was how to say their name in English. And this Yellow Shirt refused to say his name that was given to him from the chalkboard in the classroom. He kept on saying his name as Yellow Shirt. And so the Catholic, I believe there were Catholic brothers, were the teachers for the boys, and there was Catholic nuns for the girls, with some priests that were overseeing, along with some soldiers and Indian police. And so they beat him in front of the class on a daily basis. And one day, when they were beating him, they would keep saying, "Oh, you're stupid, you're dumb. See, and they would say this to the other kids. See, this one is dumb. This one is stupid. He can't talk. He's not learning anything. He's going to remain ignorant. He's going to remain a savage. And my grandpa Frank was about 5 years old at this time, experiencing this. So kindergarten age, watching a young man slowly being beaten down every day to death. And so anyway, as they were teaching these kids how to read and write and speak English, this is the ironic part, is that the day that Yellow Shirt died, was killed, I will say, was that these Catholic brothers were beating him, and he was quite resistant on this day. And so they called in one of the soldiers, one of the sergeants, to come and help them. So they cornered him up again, held him and beat him. And this time he didn't get up. He was laying in a pool of his own blood. That's how I was explained. There was a lot of blood. My grandpa said to my grandmother, who in turn told me this from my mom, that he was laying in a large pool of his blood. And he wouldn't get up. And so a priest came in and told him to stop and go get a stretcher and take him to the infirmary. And they were talking amongst themselves, and the priest was like, why is he like this? You know, why did you have to kill him? And they were like explaining to him, well, he wouldn't say his name. And before he died, this young man, with his bloody hand, in English, wrote on the wall where he was laying on the floor next to the wall below this chalkboard, and he wrote Yellow Shirt in English, and then he died. So I think about that. I think about 3 piles of burning braids and moccasins and personal items. I think of the first day of school for my grandfolks. I think of these. As I was in this cemetery, I looked at all the names and different tribes that are buried here. Seminole, Cherokee, Alaskan, Sioux, Cheyenne, Apache, Mission, Grovon. Those are just some of them that are in there. I think of all of our people today. And so it's an honor to be here, to be a part of this. Is it sad? Is the story tragic? You bet it is. Goddamn right it is. But it's good, because we're healing. We are a resilient people. You young people prove that by being here. You're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be here. All you Indians and your buffalo are supposed to be dead. The land liquidated. If you weren't dead, then you're supposed to be assimilated by now. Good little Americans. Good little Indians. But my grandma was one of the people that told me herself that the buffalo were gonna come back. And as a little boy, I did not believe that. As a little boy, I believed that wholeheartedly. And as I became a young man, similar to the ages of these young men that are, and this young lady that's buried here, teenager, started to quit believing those things. I didn't see the power and strength in my culture then. I started to lose faith, if you will. I started to lose hope. And then one day I was overseas and I started craving the taste of grabbing a handful of June berries from a bush and putting them all in my mouth. I started missing the taste of dry meat soup and dry meat from antelope. And then I heard that Fort Belknap was releasing buffalo. Back home, back on the prairie. And even though I swore I'd never go back to the res, I knew right then that I was going home. And I'm glad I broke that promise. That was a promise worthy of being broken. And she was right. The buffalo did come back. And they are many, in the thousands now, all around us. Buffalo all over the place. Indians all over the place. And you young people are speaking your language. I see you more at ceremonies. I see you dancing more at powwows. We're alive. And we're coming back to life even stronger. It's amazing. So yeah, repatriation. I'm also repatriating myself. I'm repatriating my own kids. You betcha. It's a good day today. I think, and I truly believe, that my grandchildren are going to be speaking Iitaanɔɔn'i and Nakota back and forth, and talking with their hands back and forth as they casually hunt buffalo wherever they want. That's what I think. Yes, I do. I'm feeling it right now. I'm feeling it right now in this place. I was asked. My people asked me. And as soon as I heard that question, you want to go to Carlisle to help repatriate 3 of our people, because of everything I just told you, because of my grandmother, because of the buffalo, because of my once upon a time lack of faith, and because now I had to step up and learn to be a warrior. If I dare to put this red feather in my hat, then I better do something about it. And I was grateful to be asked, and I jumped at the chance with an immediate yes. Yes. Yes, I do. I was told once, I can't remember where, I can't remember who told me. Forgiveness is the most powerful force in the universe. Thank you. Thank you for making me who I am today. Thank you for surviving as long as you did. Thank you for making it. far as you did, because it was obviously far enough, because we are all still here and the buffalo came back. You did it. We're going home. We're going to get you home. We're going to take you home. I almost want to say, yeah, sure, of course, yeah, come get them. Come get your people, come get your kids. And it's for them to decide that. I have to be able to respect these other nations that have their children here. I see that some of them, there's like one or two that have passed away and have been buried in recent years, and I think it's because they wanted to be. And maybe some of these kids here and their families want them to be left here. This is their burial ground. This is where they're put in Mother Earth. And that should be good enough for them. And if it is, then it's good enough for me. But if there are tribes out there that are wondering, should we, if they're on the fence, if they're even wondering if there's family members that are descendants of these folks, if they're just wondering about it, then come and get them. Come and bring them home. Well, I think the story of Yellow Shirt will suffice. That was the one that I wanted to say. I want people to know about that story. That's something that has been burning in my mind ever since I was told it as a little boy. And the story about how my grandma really believed buffalo were going to come back, and how someone like me completely embraced that and then threw it away, and how it literally came back to me so powerful. Really just us Indian people, we really are America. Every river, mountain, the prairie, the badlands, the breaks, the desert, these forests and hills. Don't matter if there's a city built over an old campground or a highway that totally takes over the old trails, the old hunting trails. And this is who we are. We are these trees, we are this air, we are this dirt. This is who we are. We're a part of this land because we are it. We are the land also, and the land is us. Iitaanɔɔn'i.